Alrighty. Okay. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 362. This is Fullmetal Alchemist has a genocide problem. I guess certain stories are just problematic for certain people. This is from the Foundation of Economic Education, which sounds like a great title for a YouTube channel.
Is this a Thomas Sowell channel?
I wish. That would have been hilarious to have Thomas Sowell talk about anime and economics, but that'd be kind of stupid, but
Stupid in a fun way, I'd have to say.
I don't know if he would give a crap about cartoons. Yeah, I have no idea. An old geezer who's been doing stats and math all his life.
Sure, there's a show we could show him that would get him interested in it, or be interested in some show.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be tough to pull off. But anyway, this came out last month, has about 45,000 views, and I watched it twice. I was a bit confused of what they were trying to get at. They bring up the Nuremberg trials and a bunch of other things about how soldiers are allowed to disobey orders. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. We get it. We get the logic behind that. But there's nothing specifically I saw in the anime which was like, oh yeah, this was a problem. Like, he doesn't address the conflict in the show. And
yeah, like there's only two characters in the entire show that like directly say like they enjoyed the war, like they don't have anything bad to say about it in either version of Full Metal.
All of the Homunculus in pretty much all of them in the show are evil. Like, that's their thing. They are just doing whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I was more like in the military. It's the Iron-Blooded general, and then I guess technically Bradley, but he's a homunculus.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, these people are inherently evil. They don't care about human life. They're there to enact whatever.
Well, the homunculi are mainly manifested emotions.
Yeah.
There's there's the rest of the personality around that, yes. But
yes.
They mainly represent that one emotional aspect of the main villain that he rid himself of.
Right. So
they're defined by that mainly, and not by any of the other human characteristics.
I'm trying to remember the name of the original war. Like, was it Ishbal or something like that?
The Ishvalan War of Extermination.
Right. And it's like, okay, that's a direct form of combat that occurred.
And that's only the most recent war that they've had.
Right. So
there's like 6 others, I think, in the history of their country, and they're all for a purpose.
Yeah, they're all for the same purpose, and it goes through the century.
And that's what I mean. If the villain is this evil dude, then it makes sense. Like, this is the story, this is the characters, this is why everyone's following the leader.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, that's not a problem. That makes perfect sense, and we understand it. That's what I care about. I don't care if the story has genocide at every turn. It doesn't bother me.
Especially if it's for a reason.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. You do not need to agree with the reason, because it is a completely selfish reason on top of that. There's nothing justifiable about it. And the main villain, who pulls the strings far behind the curtains, is doing so not out of racism or any such nonsense, but because he needs tons of human sacrifices in order to do his occult bullshit.
Right.
And become a god.
Like, compare that to Battlefield Earth with John Travolta, who's just retarded, like this retarded reasoning for fighting everyone and killing them off, and you're just like, okay,
yeah, that's Scientology for you.
I don't know what that is. Just a bad
Scientology
script.
is not as well written as Fullmetal Alchemist.
Well, yeah, it's true, but I'm just saying that there's stupid plots that involve genocide, which I would then say, yeah, that's certainly a problem with the character, the world, the setting, the whatever science fiction, the personality. With this one, it's like, yeah, we know why all this is happening. Why is that a problem?
Yeah, the people of this country, they don't know what they're really doing this for. They're just given a reason. They're given orders. They're the military. So they do it.
And like,
And of course, you always work with some making it look like the others attacked you first. Which with the homunculi, who can change shape. Some of them envy or at least can.
it's only envy.
They stage false flag events, which then gives the main country reason to say, "Oh, you attacked us. Now we go to war with you. You horrible people."
Yeah, even if envy didn't do that, or the military listened to 100%. If they said no for some reason, the father would have, or the villain would have gone and done it anyway himself. Like, that's what, for a little bit of a spoiler, this guy doesn't understand.
Yeah, I'm
in
trying
the logic
to
of this world.
I'm trying to relate the Nuremberg trials where we had soldiers execute civilians after or during the war, as opposed to like what happens in the anime. I can't think of specific examples.
Closest might be the whole Lior situation in the show, which in Brotherhood they don't show as much as they do in the original series, where it's literally civilians just going against the government after Ed and Al will show that Father, what's his name? That the priest is fake.
Oh, okay.
That was like the first 5 episodes of the series.
Yeah, that was the first arc of the story.
With Rose, yeah. That starts a civil war because the Emestrian government sends in military to help deal with civil unrest there because it's two factions going at each other. The people who are still Cornello, that's his name, still following Father Cornello, and then the rest of the city, they're like, no, we're done with this. And then that starts in the original series, the final spot they need for the transmutation to happen to force a phosphor stone. And it's the same thing happens in Brotherhood, but they don't show it nearly as much. They flash back every so often, but it's barely touched on.
I saw
the
original Fullmetal, so I'm not as well versed with Brotherhood. And I did.
You should watch Brotherhood.
I did try watching the first few episodes. I was like, this is pretty much the same, different. Slightly.
No, it's not.
It after about 20 episodes, it splits off.
Yeah.
Once they get to Laboratory 5, it becomes a completely different storyline.
Yeah, because the first series ran out of manga to cover, so it made up shit to continue. And
so to be fair, they did okay it with the writer.
It was watchable.
Yeah. It was completely okayed, and everything was fine because she didn't want to end up at the same spot or cover the same ground. So they worked out, and she's like, "This is what I'm doing, and you guys can go do what you want." So
yeah, that's all right when that is all in peace. The thing is just Brotherhood is closer to the manga. That's all.
Right.
And really worth watching because it's a much different ending and quite more epic, quite more complex world. Very, very recommended. And the things and what I liked about it is that these stories that were covered by the first series are and I believe that is why it is that way in Brotherhood. They're just glanced upon. As if you probably already saw the first series, so we're not going to repeat this entire arc about for 10 episodes. We just do 3 or 1.
With the exception of a few certain moments, and they know exactly what people want to see, so they purposely extend out certain parts, with Nina and Tucker.
Yes, exactly. That is such a key plot point as well.
Yes, yeah, for Ed and Al specifically, that's why they know don't shy away from this scene. Or this whole 3-episode arc.
Okay, cool. This is going to take, it's an 11-minute video. Shouldn't take too long. And unless you guys have lots of insights, because when I was listening to it, I was like, all right, this is fine. I don't agree with some statements, but it's pretty much just straightforward describing things and happening in real life, but nothing really attacking the show, which is odd because it felt like almost nothing of a video at certain points, aside from a few comments.
But his title is that the show has a problem with genocide?
Yeah, but that's all these weird politically motivated fellows who... There's a problem with women in this show. It's like, yeah, there's problems with lots of things.
Do you have a problem with women?
Well, some shows do. And
Isn't it good when the show has a problem with genocide because genocide is bad?
Yeah, that's a good thing. You want bad things to have reactions to the people in the stories, like death. When you talk about genocide, if you don't kill people in genocide, you got a problem with your story. So
it's because this show very clearly states it's not a good thing. There's only two characters in the entire show. Both are villains. Both are not human. Are the only ones who don't care about the fact that genocide happened.
Yeah.
And one completely revels in it.
All right. Anyway, let's get started. It's 11 minutes and 16 seconds. Let's go.
For years on this series, I've gotten comments requesting episodes on anime, movies, and TV shows. As most of you know, I'm not generally a huge fan, but a couple months ago, I asked you all to recommend some of your favorite content and promised that I would check it out. Shockingly, I got thousands of replies to my first poll, so I narrowed down the suggestions and did a second one, which also got thousands of responses. In the end, I settled on Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which was fortunately available to watch on Netflix. And I can honestly say that it's a really engaging show with a great balance of serious and comedic elements, and it does feature a lot of interesting themes and ideas. The family dynamic between Edward and Alphonse is wonderful, and there are a ton of memorable characters. My favorites are probably Winry and Izumi. Even some that I thought were kind of silly when they first showed up, like Armstrong, ended up growing on me over the course of the series. But at the same time,
Armstrong's awesome.
I struggled a little bit to see how it would be the basis for a good episode of Out of Frame.
You just didn't like him because you thought it was gay.
It brings up some heavily religious questions about metaphysics and epistemology.
Religious questions about metaphysics. See, that doesn't make too much sense to me. When you're talking about metaphysics and epistemology, those are philosophical questions. Religion... I mean,
it kind of does, because, especially in the, first half of the series, it is a fedora-tipping little atheist jackass, personality-wise. He grows up, but he does, Herder, I can create stuff with alchemy, so God doesn't exist. And he does, the whole where he's reading off what the elements of a human body are to Rose to prove a point. And he's doing the whole flew too close to the sun and the wings melted bit. That is him kind of being questioning whether or not God exists, and he does do that, but he obviously grows out of that because he's oh, there's actually something else out there because I've spoken to it.
Yeah.
When he goes through the door.
When you talk about metaphysics, you're talking about the theoretical, and you're talking about religious whatever, or meanderings. You're talking about a doctrine with the slant towards that religion, whatever that could be. You could be talking about Shiva, you could be talking about Hades or whatever. In the story, he goes to the place where people cease to exist, or where is that? It's the door to something. And
it's only just explained as... He never Father calls it God, but it doesn't call himself that. The being that Ed speaks with.
It's the force that causes alchemy to be possible, and
it's never given. I don't think it's
one thing.
Yeah, it's never.
That is an aspect of it.
Yeah,
it's one of those. It's never given a name specifically.
Yeah, it's not given a name. It's not clear what its real agenda is. That is at best implied. And we get more of that with Edward in his conversation with the being than with the original homunculus. They both have a conversation with the being, let's say, and you can take your interpretation of those conversations. of what that being is about.
Like, we know it's obsessed
Because
with
it's also
equivalent exchange. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
that's where that idea came from.
I remember, and it's I think it's about a decade now that I last saw it. In the conversation with Edward at the end, the being congratulates Edward on something because Edward figured something out about existence, and that makes the being happy. So that may be.
It was when he decided to give up his door, so he could no longer use alchemy to get Al back. And the being congratulated him on figuring out what was worth returning Al's body, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, that's the direct thing, and the implication behind that is that the being is happy that Ed has figured out what life is about, what existence is about.
Yeah.
And if you go all the way back into the Taoist creation myth, for example, you have in the beginning the perfect being that is God, and that in that creation myth, God existed already for somehow, because, well, how should we know what was before? But this being wanted to get to know itself, so it cut itself in half and shattered the other half, so one half, into a billion pieces. And that is the universe. So one half of God watches his shattered half interact, because every bit of these pieces has two main drives. That is to get away from God as well as return, which leads to interaction between all of these little pieces and eventually returning to God to bring back those experiences so God can learn about itself. That's what you find in the Taoist idea, and many of the supreme main creation God depictions we find in anime and manga go somewhere in that direction. They're never clearly that. They're never clearly that, but they do imply these ideas somehow. You were saying?
Like, if you've played Xenoblade?
Yes.
Yeah, if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that's that exact idea with Shulk and Rex.
In a way, you can say that.
All right, here's the Mechanist.
Although those stories focus on other parts of that whole idea.
Here's the Mechanist for $1.12. The Council of Weebs have assembled with the power of samurais, robots, waifus, cats, and hentai. Together they form Captain Ipon. Does an FMA take place in World War I? I don't think so. Is this going to be another commie pretending that...
It's it's more like World War II. It's a parallel 1940s is when, because like in the original series, it's directly in World War II when they go through the door to the other side, which is our world.
Yeah, there's steam engines and cars and what have you. So
and he meets Fritz Lang making movies.
And in the Conqueror Shambhala movie, you actually see Hitler.
Yay!
You see him giving his speech, which is like the instigating incident during that time. It's kind of hilarious that just is there.
The thing with where was I? Time where the time is. Yeah, it's closer to how World War II works for the military of. Sorry, I've forgotten the country's name at this point. Is more closely working like the fascist occult, Nazi army, if you will. Although these are still way more liberal people. But but it's just minus the tanks and the planes, because you don't need them when you have alchemy. You have super magic powers. You don't need tanks. Tanks don't hold against alchemy.
You have tanks. The
people in the north are very heavily fortified in that regard, but
in the main city they have them too. Remember when they were attacking the Fuhrer's compound?
Mm-hmm.
When Greed was helping fight, he takes a tank shell directly to the face, and the guys in the tank are like, "Oh, we're screwed." And it's that whole scene where he's.
Yeah. I don't remember much of the heavy stuff in the war scenes in Ishval, for example. Maybe that's why I forgot about that.
They don't show much of it. The thing with Ishval is we don't see a whole lot. We see a few scenes with Hughes and Mustang talking along with Hawkeye. And you see a few combat moments, but they don't ever show the entire a lot of the genocide war.
Yeah, a lot of the carnage, because most of it is against civilians, is only implied.
Mm-hmm. It's only the aftermath we see mainly. It's never we see the instigating moment, some parts in between, and the aftermath. We never see anything more than that.
All right, let's keep going.
Like, what's the nature of reality, and what actually makes a person human or themselves?
Are you sure that you're not a puppet created and controlled by your so-called brother? Were you ever even a real person to begin with?
Those are worthwhile topics of conversation, but probably best left for channels like Wisecrack. That said,
No,
Jared is no longer on Wisecrack.
It's just the fact that Wisecrack in general, it's like, no.
Contrary to the name, they're not very wise people.
As much as these people would absolutely hate it, a religion channel would be better speaking on that than any of these people.
Yeah. Anything regarding theology, and in a wider sense, not just of one religion, but even then they might be better at it. How old is this video?
A month.
Okay, so he's not watching Wisecrack, so because otherwise he might know that Jared's not there.
It's possible his editor also doesn't know, and he didn't even do this video. He just recorded his lines. So, it's a strange. It has over 260K subs. This is a big channel. So for a foundation for economic education to talk about anime, or specifically genocide in an anime, is like, what the hell?
This is, I think, Brotherhood is sophisticated enough that I could imagine Jordan Peterson bothering with it.
Oh yeah, but this is like...
Oh yeah, this is like a show that I'm sure he would love, just because of what goes on.
Yeah, but this is like going to the bank and they're selling you donuts. It's like, why is this happening? Like, who are these guys? Who set up the bakery here? That's weird. So I was at least hoping for some understanding of the economic scenario of the people and who they're fighting and the aristocracy or whatever. It's like, let's see how this all works and why they're having a war. Is it over resources? What is the resource? Why is that a thing? Nothing like that in this video. So I don't know. I don't know how this channel operates, but it's what you guys wanted to see. So that's what we're doing.
I can talk about another theme in the series that isn't quite as obvious, but which is no less important: the cost of blindly trusting people in power. Fair warning, there are...
Except they don't.
Yeah, I don't think
even Mustang doesn't
that?
Trust anyone.
Yeah, who is blindly trusting? Who is blindly trusting people in power?
No one does. None of the alchemists do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They all seem self-concerned, really. They have their own agendas, and yeah, they will fight in wars, but they're not going to start slaughtering people because It's war. They're pretty nice guys.
Yeah, and thanks to chat, the country is called Amestria, and that's not a democracy. It's a military dictatorship. And in a military dictatorship, you do not need to trust your leaders. You just do as you're told. Because you're at war. You're at constant war.
Well, with any military, you follow orders or you get court-martialed.
Yeah, and that you don't need trust to do that.
Yeah. You have a hierarchy, a chain of command, and you follow it or you get discharged, perhaps even through treason, depending on the order. I don't know. It could be pretty bad.
Yeah. And you can be pretty sure that the soldiers in the Wehrmacht do not necessarily believe in the Nazi shit. They were conscripted, and then they were told to do as their orders, as they were ordered. And if they didn't, well, they got shot. You don't need trust in your superiors. Well, the one trust you can have is that if you are in subordination, I'm sorry, my English is so fucked up today. If you turn out insubordinate, you can trust to be shot. Okay, but that's it. You don't need positive trust in when you are in the military.
Yeah, like the
only ones here who have a blind trust, for the most part, are the homunculi in their father. That's the closest thing you have.
And that's not even 100% across them, because Greed certainly doesn't trust him.
Yeah, because Greed, as his name implies, he wants to have everything. And if he could, he would try to take the power of his father.
He tries to, actually, in the final fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the whole point of his being. It's his core aspect.
And in Brotherhood, the little kid, it's Wrath, I think, in this one, in Brotherhood, because Wrath is the Führer in the original. Like, towards the end, Wrath obviously doesn't remember him. But he's willing to do whatever's necessary. Like, if he had to harm Father, he would. I don't know if he could, but he would try.
Yeah, we could always talk about the family members. They trust each other in most cases. There's some scenarios with the tertiary characters where a lover or a father and her daughter trust each other even though they shouldn't, but those are usually tragic aspects of the story. So trust is not that major a theme I can think of. It just sort of goes hand in hand with relationships. So
yeah, it's only brought up once, really, and that's with Barry, and that's just because Barry's messing with Al.
Yeah.
In Brotherhood, Raph is the Führer, and his boy is Pride.
Right, that's right. I couldn't remember how they switched it around because because Wrath was Izumi's kid in the original.
Yeah. And that is something that the original got wrong in depicting Raph, the idea of Raph correctly, because that kid just rages. Rage is not Raph, and that's why. And I understand why they accidentally messed it up, because the Führer character comes off as very proud. However, Raph fits that character so much better, because Raph is focused and applied rage and anger that you only pinpoint on the exact target and nothing else. You only let it out when the moment for it is right. And that is exactly what Bradley is doing.
Yeah.
I think that was his name.
Yeah, it's Fear Bradley.
Yeah,
so to be fair, in the original series,
he's completely collected and focused every single moment.
Yeah, and to be fair, in the original series, it was also Dante that was naming them. They weren't cast-offs of a greater homunculi.
Mm-hmm.
They were just failed transmutations that she came about finding. So
right. Okay.
Yeah, the whole father idea wasn't there. I think in that one, even the the father was the actual dad of, turned out to be the actual dad of Edward and Alphonse.
Yes,
Like that's why
Envy is
it
their
didn't-
older brother.
Yeah, it all didn't really make proper sense because they didn't know what was actually planned for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's
still
still
lovely.
watchable. It's still
like the last-
watchable.
2 episodes of the original Brotherhood or the original FMA are a bit of a mess. But other than the last 2 episodes, it's still worth a watch.
Yeah, but I'm say if you've watched Brotherhood first, you're probably not gonna enjoy the first one that much.
Yeah, so anytime I suggest someone to watch a show, it's like, watch the original first, then watch Brotherhood.
All right, let's go.
Going to be spoilers for the entire series of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Given how many of you wanted me to do this, I'm pretty sure y'all have already seen it. If not, go check it out, then come back here and prepare to give me an equivalent amount of attention in exchange for this short edition of Out of Frame.
That is
Fullmetal Alchemist.
I'm sorry, that is not an equivalent exchange. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is 50 or 52 episodes of really good content, and you have 10 minutes of, according to Smut, who watched the video, nothing. That's not equivalent exchange. Your joke fails.
He would have to actually have watched the show to make.
Didn't he?
I don't think so.
He might have watched the show, but I don't think he paid attention.
I don't think with
What?
the amount of content there is.
He probably had it in the background while doing something else and didn't actually pay attention to what was going on.
I don't know what happened, but you cannot make a response to the topic of genocide and not actually write down which episodes did the genocide and where the topic came up, and then you just focus on those episodes, because that's not the whole theme of the story. I don't think it ever was. I think war and fighting is definitely part of it, but that's not genocide. That's just fighting in general, because they have a certain plot and the protagonists have a certain plot. It's all coming together all the time. So that's just how every story goes. But I look at this, I look at the manga, I look at this, look at the original. Genocide is not really that major a theme. Maybe a few episodes. Other than that, not really.
It's only brought up when they're talking about Scar, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, genocide. Because he's a product of that, or the remnant of it, and the manifestation of the pain and struggle of that of his people. And if you want to go for main themes of the story, because genocide is only a tool for the villain, it only comes up a couple times. Yes, it's part of the history of that country and of the surrounding countries, but that's just the world itself. The story, however, the main focuses are family and maybe. You could watch the whole thing as a giant detective story, if you will. You could interpret it that way, because we're trying to uncover a plot of immense manipulation, marionetting, and and figure out that this world, or rather this country, is about something completely different than we all believed for generations. That it's all just a giant experiment by some immortal being.
It's a good spy thriller if you frame it that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't go far with detective fiction, just because once you incorporate the supernatural and the investigation of how it's done, you can't quite use deductive logic anymore. It sort of falls apart.
You can't, because with Fullmetal, they don't really use. It's not alchemy that's the question. It's what's going on with the country. Alchemy is just there as a tool.
Yeah, it's like, now we have these omnipotent, or not omnipotent, but these really powerful beings running around. It's like, they could do other things. Like, gluttony can eat anything, or someone can change their shape at any point. It's like, as soon as you start doing stuff like that, you're breaking a lot of rules of detective fiction, whether or not it's even magical in its very nature. So you're already screwing stuff up.
I mean, but you can break those rules, but then still stay consistent within breaking those rules. Like none of the homunculi do anything outside of what they're shown.
Oh yeah, but
some of them have.
You just randomly get a new ability.
If you ground it more, you could say some of the homunculi have very powerful weapons, and Envy is a master of disguise and a con artist and scam artist.
I think it's best to look at it very similarly to the Monster anime, which is also another long anime, where it's a mystery of what's going to happen next. Who is Johan going to kill or come across? Like, that's sort of the mystery of how is the Doctor going to find him. And it's not so much who he is, because we know it's Johan and he's the bad guy, but there's other people along the way who are also evil. And I think you come across some Nazis or some weird experimental figures in the past. So it's sort of the horror and the suspense that's pushing you along. It's not so much who killed who, because it's probably Johan. He probably killed someone along the way, and that's the beauty of the story. It's to freak you out with how he killed someone and why he killed someone, not some mystery murderer. And I think
what I meant is Brotherhood has elements of that in the whole uncovering the overarching plot to get to that final point.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you have these little bits where the characters, not necessarily the audience, but where the characters have to are trying to figure out what did actually happen. Where did this one character disappear to, or who killed? What was his name? Mace Hughes.
Yes, another one of the scenes where they knew exactly what the fans wanted to see and did not skip out on it. The whole Mace Hughes murder, which is still a rallying cry for the fans of the show, even to this day, is that whole.
Yeah, and it was really well done, and because he's a side character who is made really likable.
Yeah, it's like the
so you get the impact.
Mustang, it's raining today at Hughes's burial. And Hawkeye just goes, yes, it is, when it's clearly not raining, but he's crying. It's still one of those, like... It's the same with Edward from Nina. It's along those same, like... Everyone knows that line, and it's a powerful scene for anyone who watches the show.
All right, here's Jake the Surgeon. Hey, Jake, how's it going? I wake up from my nap to find this. I'm going to take a vertical razor rub now. Okay, go for it, my man. Here's Alex Halo, a immortal being doing an experiment to become God. Yep, something like that. All right.
It is a series set in the vaguely European country of Amestris, which is ruled by the Führer King Bradley, which, wow, talk about an unsubtle title. In addition,
the joke is, and I laughed so hard about this, King is his first name.
Yes.
This is, and with Hohenheim, he's called Van Hohenheim, and Van is his first name. When we figured that out, because it's used like that in a later episode, that we were laughing so hard, me and my friends, when we watched it. We had to pause and couldn't stop laughing for minutes. Because...
I assume it's something with German.
Yes, because the when you have a von in your name, that is not a first name. That is something like you say... Harald von Hohenheim. It would mean the von is a preposition like to or from. So it would be Harald from Hohenheim, which implies that he has some lower royal title of being from that place. Like he has the manor there. He's the regent or running the show or something to that. And there are variations of this, like von und zu would be a bigger version of that. I'm not firm on the details, but this is essentially his first name is a preposition. Like as if he would be called from Hohenheim, and from would be his first name. This, like, and we sit here laughing because it's just what the fuck.
Homunculus gave him his name Hohenheim. Was it? If I remember correctly, he gave him the name Hohenheim because he was just a slave and had a number. He didn't have a name.
Yeah, he didn't have a name at all.
And so I think he gave himself Vaughn after everything that happened.
Yeah, but I can imagine that the naming was done before the backstory, and
yeah, obviously.
But it's the same stupid thing with King Bradley. It's just, but it's okay. It's funny. It's funny, and it's another world. So go have at it.
You can name a person King as a name. That is a possible name.
And with Bradley, it makes more sense because he was groomed to be the king. So obviously, and Father is not exactly the most subtle person when he doesn't want to be. Like Homunculus, he is not he can be subtle when he needs to be, but when he's like, no, this is what it's going to be, and no one's going to question it, especially when he's in charge. So.
All right, here is Jake the Surgeon. Oh no, things that remind me of bad Germans. I must hide under my bed. Well, it was obvious what they were trying to do with the title and the military organization, which is fine.
So I'm not complaining. It's just funny.
Yeah.
I will say I still love the military outfits for the Amestran military. Oh, yeah. They just look good. They're well-designed military uniforms.
Yeah, it's hard to see a good uniform these days.
All right.
In real life, they all look like potato sacks.
Well, this kind of reminds me of that unbuttoned lapel in the original Star Trek movies. I think was the second one where they had the red, the red outfits, and Kirk always had his lapel unbuttoned or whatever. So,
I mean, the Star Trek uniforms are well designed uniforms too, in general.
And if you look at the Babylon 5 uniforms, they have this implied. They don't have the open lapel, but they have it implied by the way they're designed with the leather patches.
Oh yeah, well those are actually nicely
which makes
designed.
them look amazing. Yeah. I've personally, to me, the Babylon 5 uniforms are the best science fiction fantasy uniforms ever made. Yeah, fight me.
That was when they went rebel, or they no longer joined, or they went against Earth. So they had the leather on top, and then they went away. It was all.
Black. No, I don't mean the black ones that they later had. I mean the original blue ones.
Oh, you like those? Oh.
Yeah, I like those. I like those. The thick leather and the triangle buttons, which by the way they had soon on wrong on some of the uniforms, where they were upside down because they should actually follow the line of the fabric, and some of them had or I think you punched them into the fabric. Done that the wrong way, so the angles are all off on some of the side characters who had broken uniforms. But yeah, maybe you need to be autistic to notice that and drive you nuts as you watch it.
Oh, I'm sure there are fans that saw that and came up with some weird conspiracy theory within the show when it was airing.
I did like how simple it was. There was the blue, there was the gray, and I think that was it. That was the command.
That was it, yeah.
Had blue, and everyone else had gray, yeah.
Yeah, the security had gray.
Yeah. All right, Jake the Surgeon again. Mustang. It's a terrible day for rain, but not for me. Incinerates lust. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that whole scene with him dealing with lust and envy is just great.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go.
In addition to a large standing military, mostly made up of average, everyday soldiers, Amestris also boasts a roster of what they call state alchemists. Alchemy is, of course, a form of magic, but it's explained as being a somewhat scientific process with 3 steps.
It's hard magic.
Destruction, and reconstruction. From a storytelling standpoint, one thing I really like is that although alchemy can be used to do some astonishing things, it does have some hard limits.
It is impossible to create something out of nothing. If one wishes to obtain something, something of equal value must be given. This is the law of equivalent exchange.
I have all sorts of questions about how anyone can actually define equal value when that's an entirely subjective question, but the main point here is that a trained
No, here it's actually
It's just a
very
dumbed
simple.
down way of explaining it.
Yeah. You can't change mass. You can't change elements into other elements. You have to. In the beginning. There's this, I don't know if it's in the original or this one, where Alphonse is repairing a radio for someone.
It's in both versions.
And he's using alchemy for that, which means where he says, well, all the parts are there. He just needs to put them together again with alchemy. So even if all the circuitry is there, if the circuitry is broken, he just needs to extend the copper on the PCBs, for example, to have the connection back. It doesn't need to be as dense copper just to keep the current and melt the PCB together, because all it needs to do is join the matter connection again. It's as if you put two ice cubes together and they will melt together.
It's like the Alchemy of Greed, I think his name was. He could make his skin really hard, but he was using his bones to transfer to his skin.
His carbon
in the bone.
Yeah, he was just rearranging the carbon within him.
Right.
Yeah.
He wasn't creating something.
Exactly.
Yeah, and by the way, there's an interesting thing about glass that is used in physics experiments and everything. When you manage to cut glass perfectly, that means to the atom, perfectly plain, and you put two of those surfaces together, it becomes one. The two pieces become one because it just reconnects. There's no seam, no nothing. So this is basically what Alphonse does when he fixes a circuit board. He just puts everything perfectly back together. He doesn't need anything else. The question you can ask is, where does he get the energy to move things from? Okay, that might be something. In the case of Izumi doing this thing with the walls in the water, you can make the argument she's taking the energy for motion out of the water.
They do
for
somewhat
example.
explain that in the series. It's initially thought that they're taking energy from magma and the tectonic plates of the Earth, when in reality they're taking from the Philosopher's Stone that Father has spread out all over the country. But then there's the Alka History, which is in the country to the east, which is like the eastern
the original
style.
alchemy.
Yes, which uses
Oh,
which
right, I remember.
actually does use the tectonic plates, because when Father kills all alchemy within Amestris for a short time, only May could still use her Alka History.
Yeah. It's coming.
Remember, she uses
it's coming back to
throwing
me.
knives
It's
to
coming
make
back
the
to me.
transmutation circles.
Yeah, because they figure out at some point that the alchemy in their own country is wrong, that it doesn't work the way it should at some point. I remember
because May
that.
even says, like all the I can't remember what the country's called, but it's May, Ling, and the
China.
older gentleman and her and his granddaughter. They all state a fact that the country feels weird. They noticed it as soon as they set foot in the country. It doesn't feel right.
This is great to get an understanding of the show, but this has nothing to do with the topic that the video should be about. So maybe just filling in the basics for people, but we can keep going. Here is Alex Halo, author. I rather draw Armstrong's muscle than uniforms. Okay, makes sense.
He seemed weirded out by Armstrong at first. Might be a bit homophobic or suppressed homosexuality.
Why did I draw this giant man with huge muscles? Why?
Oh, I thought you meant him, the guy who makes the video.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, because he stated that he was like, Armstrong is weird, but you get used to him, and he's like, yeah, that's the whole point. And
yeah,
everyone in this, it's a running joke with the series. Everyone in the show.
Yes, he always has sparkles around his head.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's great.
That's
He just wants to
And then you
take
meet his
shirt off.
sister, who's the complete opposite of him, and it's hilarious. And he's terrified of her, which is I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's
And the bro moment when he meets Izumi's husband.
Oh god.
Yes.
And they just flex to greet each other like.
That's the anime equivalent of from Predator, isn't it? With
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, it's that exact same energy.
Except they take it to the next extreme where they just keep doing it whenever they're together.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jake the Surgeon, I don't see how it's hard to understand when the show demonstrates what value is. Only an idiot wouldn't get it. It's very similar to the law of conservation of mass.
That's exactly what it is. They just
it's
call it something
explained
different.
several times.
Yeah.
Throughout the show,
Not a big
several
deal.
times. Mm-hmm.
And they even call out when something isn't following the rule, and that they're like, "Oh, Philosopher's Stone. That's what it's got to be because it's the only thing they can do that."
Yeah, because this shouldn't work.
And even the Philosopher's Stone follows that same law.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just doesn't use matter; it uses energy as its cost.
Yeah, and the thing with the Philosopher's Stone is that's where you get the metaphysical into it, because that's the whole thing about human transmutation doesn't work because there seems to be something missing in creating a human. The mass, the atomic elements alone are not enough. The natural elements. There's something else that is required that you need. And we can, for simplicity's sake, call that a soul. And that is what the immortal being that wants to become a god is harvesting en masse. That's why he's genociding people. If he only needed mass itself, that would be irrelevant, because then humans are just a bunch of carbon, hydrogen, and some other elements in lesser amounts. But that's not a relevant piece to make the Philosopher's Stone and ascend to godhood.
All right.
It requires this divine spark that humans have.
Here is
And that is access to this gate or whatever it is in this show.
Here's Alex Halo. The author says she loves drawing Armstrong, which who can blame her?
Yeah, she has a bunch of little omakes in the manga where it's just Armstrong being Armstrong, and it's amazing.
Is that the chibi versions of him, or is that just?
No, sometimes it's chibi, but sometimes it's full like short sketches.
Oh, okay.
And she's a woman. It's okay.
Yeah, she's my favorite writer. Oh, and Wisp, if you're not aware, she's got a new manga coming out.
Ooh,
I don't know what it's called.
Really?
But it was announced that she's got a new manga coming out, and I'm like, oh, yes.
Is
love her
the
stuff.
genre known?
I don't
setting?
know. I just saw that it was a new series.
Damn. Cool. Thank you.
I've been out of the loop. I've just been reading all the traditional isekais, so I don't know what's going on.
The traditional.
Yeah, well, they're either Korean or Chinese or Japanese, but they're all isekai. So
The original Fullmetal becomes an isekai.
Yes.
Right at the end there, it does. Because they go to our world.
Reverse isekai.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the movie. Yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Well, not just the movie. The movie takes place in our world, but that's after they end up over there.
Oh God, why have I forgotten that?
Because lots of people forget about Conquer Shambhala. As bad as it is, it's still entertaining as all get out.
Oh, the animation was good.
Yeah. I mean, it's Studio Bones. You're going to get good animation out of them.
All right, let's go.
Alchemist, incredible capacity for creating extraordinary benefit or extraordinary harm, depending on how they choose to use their gifts. This always matters, but particularly because a large number of the most talented and skilled alchemists in Amestris are working for the government.
Should he choose to accept the position, he'll be required to serve the military in times of national emergency. In return, he'll receive privileges and access to otherwise restricted research materials.
Becoming a state alchemist also comes with a
Way too
handsome
deep voice.
salary and significant funds set aside specifically for research
I like
and
voice.
supplies. It's an attractive offer for people who identify as little more than a particular type of scientist. And all it costs is reserved military status, only strictly needing to be deployed in the event of an emergency. Unfortunately for state alchemists in Amestris, emergencies seem to happen all the time.
Not really.
Now we still have skirmishes at the borders of Arago to the south and Creta to the west. North of us is the huge country Drachma. We have a tentative non-aggression pact with them and break.
Wait, that's the voice actor for Edward?
Yes, it's Vic Mignogna. That's where most people know him from.
Okay, here he sounds like he's falling asleep.
He's because he's explaining something that's relatively dry. He's explaining the history to, I think, May.
Yeah.
Or no, he's talking to another military person at this time. So he's not. He's in bed. So he's just been hurt. It's right after Laboratory 5.
Okay, so it is justified that he sounds like he's dozing off and as if not interested.
Well, that's a very soft Vic Mignogna voice. Like, he has a deeper voice, so for him to pull that off is pretty good.
It just struck me as so off. So I don't know the context in which he's explaining this, because usually when you have these scenes, the characters speak very matter-of-factly.
Yeah, because they're trying to figure out. It's just after Laboratory 5, and they're looking at the. Is it after? No. Sorry, it's after they have just been up for a few days trying to discover the secret behind Dr. Marco's work, and they find the map of Amestris, and they're going around explaining all the different zones and the conflicts they're having. So Ed's tired at this point in time. He's exhausted.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
You know, he doesn't talk like this the entire time. Vic Mignogna is like the English dub.
I was scared.
The English dub for Fullmetal Alchemist is one of the best dubs out there. And also because the world is vaguely European, it doesn't. There's not that. Oh, they're Japanese speaking English.
I'll take your word for it.
Effect. You know, it's a really good dub, and this
I'll
is before Funimation went woke, so it's not garbage.
Yeah, but he's wrong about that there always is a crisis, always is a conflict. That's not entirely true. There are decades of nothing. Because the homunculi are just...
There's centuries of nothing at one point.
Yeah.
Like a century of nothing happening.
Yeah, because they need the homunculi need forever to set everything up for the next big genocide. They need to concentrate people of the other countries in the correct place for the mass sacrifice. And then you have Sloth slowly building this giant circle tunnel around the country. So as long as Sloth isn't at the next spot, there's no point in making the genocide. And he's taking his time.
Oh, he's Sloth, of course he is.
Yeah, and Father has unlimited time anyway.
Yep.
There's no reason to rush things and burn the people out.
Here is
that's
Tyler Preston, thank you. Now I want to see Edward Elric and Senku Ishigami in a room together talking about science. Senku Ishigami. I'm trying to remember who the heck that is. Dr. Stone manga? Oh, okay. I haven't say I'm familiar with that. Anyway.
Oh, it's the main protagonist of Dr. Stone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have not read it, so
couldn't tell you. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Anyway, let's go.
These mountains between us, making invasion difficult, but our relationship is still dicey at best.
So, with enemies all around and an ever-increasing military presence at home stirring up civil unrest, state alchemists are called to military action on what seems like a daily basis.
Wrong.
And in many cases, for not very good reasons. The worst example was the Ishvalan extermination campaign.
That was not a daily thing.
Before the event.
And actually, I'd say the worst example is the Lior incident, because there was nothing happened in Lior to make the military have to go in. The only reason they're there is because that's the next spot they needed. This actually the Ishvalan thing had an actual inciting incident, which would give them cover as to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the military didn't go into Lior, there would be no reason for them to be there. Nothing would happen there. The two sides would have gotten over each other eventually.
And I think your interpretation is proven right at this point, that this guy didn't only watched Brotherhood in the background. Otherwise, he would have noticed that it's not a daily thing. What the hell?
Yeah, and the brothers were just there because their quest is to find the Philosopher's Stone. So they're just going on their own personal journey.
And they're often on week-long train rides.
Yeah, so they're not... I think they do get missions once in a while in the mail, I think. I can't recall. But...
You know, what you do in any military for the most time is sit around.
Yeah, the only time...
Or sit at a desk.
They only get handed missions directly from Mustang. They never are like... There's one time I think it was called, but it was in the original.
Yeah, and who is most of the time working at his desk. Same with his close friends in the military. They're doing paperwork. They're doing paperwork. They're pulling strings.
Yeah, it's only Hughes you see actually like out and about and investigating, but he's part of the investigative. There we go. I got the word out. Branch of the military. So that's his job, is to be out and about investigating things.
Yeah, and you have field agents, and you have the people who push papers and read papers and correct papers and analyze papers. Yeah, that's the biggest part of it, and he's part of that element.
Except for when Scar shows up in Central City.
Yeah, because then it gets personal.
His desk. Yeah, he's basically just at his desk the entire time.
Like the first time we really see him come into action, I think, is with the Lust incident.
No, you see him kind of fight with Scar, or try to, but it's raining.
Yeah, but that, as I said, that's just a little bit. He wants to get into action but can't with the Lust incident, which is very late in the series. I think.
Yeah, then you see why people are scared of him, or respect him more so, not scared of him, I should say.
All right.
In Fullmetal Brotherhood, a civil war broke out when an Amestrian soldier accidentally shoots and kills a child in the Ishvala region. The child's death catalyzed an already oppressed minority to launch a full-on rebellion. And then, Führer King Bradley sent his army to exterminate the entire Ishvalan people. When that was taking too long, he called in the state alchemists. The Ishvalan extermination campaign was, as the Führer intended, a brutal slaughter. Though our main characters, Edward and Alphonse, were too young to have been sent to Ishvala, their best friend lost her parents in the fighting, and nearly all of the adult characters in the show carry some form of trauma from being forced to murder the Ishvalan people. But as much as we can and probably should sympathize with the pain some of our favorite alchemists like Colonel Mustang, Dr. Marco, and Major Armstrong feel from participating in the genocide, the fact remains, they participated. Far too often, far too many people give relatively low-level state actors like law enforcement and soldiers a pass for behavior.
What the fuck are you bringing up here?
Yeah, we're talking about orders.
This is where it takes a turn.
Yeah, like
because I did see this.
If you're a soldier, and you're given orders to attack an enemy, you attack an enemy. That's how it goes. Yes, there could be women and children there, and there are rules against that, but maybe not in this world. We don't know. I don't know exactly what rules they have, and if it's not laid out in the narrative, it's not part of the story.
Yeah, and you can't equate the actions of a military under order with police
during a war
doing that. Yeah, being on duty. And I am not familiar with this specific case. Problem is, every time we read something like this of unarmed black man, and then we get the footage of what actually happened, it then turns out to be someone so non-compliant that the officer was even in mortal danger, or would be letting an obvious criminal, because he just actively fought against an officer, get away.
Well,
like the guy at the what was it, KFC or no some Wendy's or something.
Wendy's, yeah. That happened 30 minutes from where I live.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
The guy who couldn't, the guy who had fallen asleep in his car in the drive-in, and the police.
Yeah, the drive-through and the.
Yeah, police got to him, and I've watched all the footage of that case, and they asked him some basic stuff, and then he went non-compliant, to say the least, because he realized that if he's detained for drunk driving, because he had drunk some, that's why he fell asleep. He would go right back to prison because he was on probation, parole, whatever that's called in English.
Probation, yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, it was parole for him.
Yeah,
it was parole.
Yeah, because he was a felon of abusing his wife and children, and that's a pretty tough person. That's not a simple innocent man. He realized that, so his how do you say this? He panicked because he didn't want to go to prison, and for this little incident would be enough for that. So he suddenly attacked the cops. There were two who couldn't force him down, and he tried to steal a taser. The taser shots against him didn't work, and then I think he tried to steal a taser or the gun, but I think he just got the taser.
He did. Yeah, he went for the officer that he knocked silly when he threw him to the ground and went for the taser.
Yeah, and then he tried to run away.
No, he turned and aimed the taser, which in the relatively dark parking lot looked like a gun to the other officer.
Yeah,
and
and
the officer shot him.
Yeah, and then he was shot because he was trying to run away armed with a weapon he stole from a cop. Like, what else do you want? And the headlines we got, and which BLM and Antifa thought is completely justifies them to burn down the Wendy's, which is even more insane, was just unarmed black man shot by police, which is just wrong. And so I have trouble believing these headlines at this point. I am at the point you have, because the news has lied so much about what is actually going on with cases like this, that I am not buying the unarmed, innocent black man who has done nothing wrong when the headline comes up. Because when I see the footage, in very rare cases, yes, that's true. But in almost all cases, that's not true. And these people are always resisting, always making a fuss. And there was this other case not so long ago, maybe in Detroit. Some city is now very open with instantly releasing the police footage. And it has helped stave off all these protest events because it takes the wind right out of the sail. And it was probably the most lenient and polite cop ever. He was also massively obese. And he had this completely erratic woman who wasn't listening to anything he said. Was when he told her to stay at the back of the car, she did that for like 5 seconds and then went back into the car to look for something, and telephoned. And then she asked, could she go to the toilet? And he just wanted her to stay at the back of the car, and she kept going back in again and again and again. And in the end, she found her gun and shot him, and he shot back. And then she drove away and died on the way or something, I suppose. She drove into the off the road. And yeah, if you don't release that footage immediately, you will get these headlines, and then it would be white cop shot black woman. Yeah, and no context, nothing relevant here. So I would have to look up this case just to know, is this headline even true? I'm not giving the benefit of the doubt anymore. They played that up too much.
I looked it up just curious, and apparently the guy left his car sitting in the middle of the road, which you don't do after it broke down, and then didn't listen to police instructions.
The simple issue in this story is the fact the person was acquitted, and usually what happens when you're part of some public display of some police doing something, they either fire you or you resign and you find other employment. And gee, what's wrong with a ex-police officer teaching courses in NRA? I don't see why that's a slap in the face. These people have to lead their lives. They have to continue on with their life. And they're innocent. They have been found innocent. So there's nothing inherently legally wrong with doing that. You might be uncomfortable because cops were doing their job. But that's just public knowledge. Therefore, you're scared or whatever. But there's nothing wrong with a person changing their vocation who used to be a police officer. So,
yes, but these people think that, if you kill someone, that you should be, killed in the sense of you should never be able to work again.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's keep going.
Unless, of course, you kill someone who has spoken ill of socialism.
You shot an unarmed black man who was also Asian, Hispanic, and a trans female socialist. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, you shot a socialist.
Oh, that's bad because socialism is perfect and just for the benefit of everyone. How could you? If you critique it, you must be mentally insane.
Yeah.
So you should be removed from society because you are a danger.
We just like to critique it with bullets. That's how we communicate these ideas. Anyway.
Behaviors they'd consider horrific if anyone else did them. They dismiss atrocities like torture, breaking up families, attacking nonviolent protesters, and even genocide as
this is police. Orders. Even then, this is police. And also, this is China.
And which, oh no. What was that about socialism? Or communism? Being perfect.
Yeah,
don't question it.
Please stop equating the police with the military. Those do work differently. And in China, they seem like to be melded together, which is what you see happening in a tyranny. In a tyranny, military and police meld together. That's why. I would need to look up the term, but that's why we call it the military police, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, in most
it's not the
Western countries that aren't a dictatorship, the military has no jurisdiction.
There's always arguments about the police being more
areas.
Outfitted, the military because of SWAT teams and increased problems.
But that just means that they look scary to these people who don't know the reasoning behind these.
Yeah, most metropolis have
tools being used.
Have these counter response units that need to be equipped. That's why we have them. Would you want them to not be equipped?
Yes, and it's not. These people wouldn't, and all the stuff that they use is handed down from the military. It's made non-military. They reduce it so it's not nearly as powerful. It's not as strong as it was. But then instead of wasting all that billions of dollars that they spent on it to make it, they reuse it. Hey, recycling, isn't that what you people want?
Yeah. So under normal circumstances, military police just keeps up the regulations within the military. But when we speak about tyranny, it just all melts into one big thing. Because it's just an arm of the tyrant. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment.
Yeah, military police don't have any jurisdiction outside of the military base that they're on.
Yeah.
Especially here in the States. If the second you step off a military base, the military police can't do anything unless you committed a crime on the base.
Yeah, and when that changes...
committed a crime in their jurisdiction.
Yeah, and once that changes, your country has gone to shit.
Okay.
That's just as flimsy a defense for horrible actions by state officials today.
That didn't entirely work in Nuremberg.
The Nuremberg defense?
It's the whole, they were just following orders.
I've not heard it that way.
Yeah.
I've not heard it named that way here, at least. This is the first time I hear the term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it being used here before, where you can't just say, "Oh, I was just following orders" as an excuse for doing horrible things when in the military or a police organization.
And because that it does, it's also because it didn't hold up at the Nuremberg trials.
Yes, but this is coming from the people who don't
just because
actually
they
pay
use
attention
it
to history and just go, yeah.
There's
a reason why a lot of the people fled to South America where they knew they weren't going to be found. Because I was just following orders, what didn't hold up.
Yeah, and we had a similar thing after the fall of the Soviet Union on the Berlin Wall, or at the whole. We called the whole border that more or less in the common jargon. The whole border, we had guards, minefields, and so on. And those guards had the order to shoot everyone who tried to flee the country, just like North Korea now. And we know from several soldiers of the NVA, the National Volksarmee, that they deliberately what's the word? Not hit. What's the opposite of hitting? Missing. Ha! They deliberately missed many of them. Of course, not all. And the wife of Erich Honecker, who wrote the bloody thing, Margaret Honecker was, you could say, the main brain behind Erich Honecker, which is the really scary part. And her defense was there was no shooting order. There was only that is a gross misrepresentation and slander. There was only a weapons use guideline. That's how she called that. That's what she called her shooting order that she wrote. That was her euphemism, and we had a term for these kinds of people. I don't remember whether it came up during Nuremberg or just after East Germany, which we call Schreibtischtäter. A Schreibtischtäter would be literally translated into a desk perpetrator. So the person who thinks up horrible orders and horrible plans, puts the signature down and just gives out the order. And that's the person who is responsible, who's most responsible. And
unaccountable bureaucrat, basically. And not like it's someone who just
but it's the higher up bureaucrat that comes up with the order, and that is the great conundrum about the case of what's his name? Was his first name also Adolf? About Eichmann, and Hannah Arendt wrote about that very much. Eichmann was the guy who constructed the Holocaust. He went to work and he just did the blueprint. He made the blueprints. He came up with the systems of where to put which people, who does what, and so on and so on. A purely theoretical job where he only works with paper. He never had humans in mind for that. Because otherwise he probably couldn't have done the job in the first place. And there's this anecdote with Eichmann where after work he drove home and he ran over a cat. And I think he even buried the cat then, and he wept for it for days. But every day he drove back into his office and kept architecting, constructing the Holocaust plans. He didn't come up with so there was humanity in him, but he was not the one who had the idea of the Holocaust. He was the one who was given the order of make it happen, make it work, build the system, build the factory, if you will. And the question then was in the trials, how guilty is he for having made the thing that he was ordered to do? And how much, that's the next question, how much can you deny an order, rebel against something in a system where not just, for one, you are targeted with a death sentence if you do not comply, but your family is as well. That is where the term Sippenhaft comes into play. The Sippe is an old word for family. So when you fuck up, your whole family suffers. It's something we see in very, very old archaic societies. Like, Japan did some, sins of the father. In a way, old Japan did something like this with their honor system. Like if someone in the family fucked up and it was too grave, then the whole family had to commit suicide or something like that, or had to be executed. Because the shame was, the dishonor was just too big to pay up for it. Yeah, and the Nuremberg defense, I'm sorry, that's something that never really works.
All right.
That is it depends a lot on the context.
Yeah,
and the deed.
Go ahead.
I think you have less of a the more tyrannical the system is you are in, the higher the pressure is. I think the more likely you could get away with it, and maybe the lower your position is as well. But in a system like the United States, I doubt you could ever get away with it, because it is technically, or where it is flawed, it still tries to appear more just and logical. Because otherwise it loses legitimacy.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, you can't just do whatever you want, and it's like, oh, my higher ups told me to do that. No, that you bear the brunt of if you do something horrible, you will be court-martialed and you will be sent to jail. And the barrier for guilty or innocent in the military is much, much strict. So it's, to my knowledge, like, it's a whole separate system than the standard American justice system.
All right, let's keep on.
But I mean, it had to be for a military. And
was during the Nuremberg trials in 1945 and 46. Throughout all of history, it's rarely the heads of state or military leaders themselves who get their hands dirty with the actual execution of conquest and mass murder. The people
nowadays, yes, within recent history, but through most of history, kings were the leaders of their militaries, the absolute leader.
Yeah, we have.
This is only a new thing.
The wonderful story of Alexander the Great, why he was so good, because he actually led his armies. He was the guy in charge, in front, the front lines, pushing all throughout.
Oh yeah, because it was honorable to be in the front, leading the people who you were sending to die.
Well, that was part of his philosophy. Yeah, like, it wasn't just I'm a crazy murdering person, although you could argue he was, but he was basing it off the virtues of democracy, which was rule by the strongest or the bravest, or the most courageous, those who deserve to risk much, get much. And that was his philosophy throughout all of his conquering. But he's still a conqueror. Like, he's still a bloodthirsty dude who just wants stuff. And different time.
He kind of had to be at that point in time.
Different period of time for humanity in those areas of the world. So, yeah. There's other reasons why this happened, but yeah, he did get around, and he killed a lot of people. So
yeah, but he could not.
Look at Genghis Khan.
Yeah, but he could not impress Diogenes.
No one could.
Yeah, no one could. Imagine it's Alexander the Great. And he's a big fan. He was a big fan of Diogenes, and he comes to this man he thinks is one of the wisest on earth. And Diogenes, in his barrel, just complains, "Get out of my son." It's Alexander the Great, and he just told him to get out of the sun.
There's lots of stories of Alexander seeking out wise men because he wanted to live forever or whatever the bullshit stories were. And they all sort of turn him down. They all sort of like, yeah, we don't care. We're not scared of you. We've lived our lives. We have nothing to fear. If you want to kill us, I mean...
Yeah, he was still young.
Strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you ever imagined.
Alexander died at, what, like 30 or 32? I can't remember his age when he died, but...
yeah.
He was pretty crazy.
Fairly young by today's standards, but fairly old by, the time and period where you had to fight.
Yeah, so look at 30-year-olds today. They haven't conquered continents. They live in the basements of their parents eating soy. Compare yourselves. Read some biographies.
Thank you very much.
Let's get back to his argument here, whatever it might be. We haven't got it yet.
People who are directly committing these crimes generally had no real say in making the final decisions. They're given their orders, and they're expected to obey. So the question we have to ask is it reasonable to hold those people responsible for the crimes conceived of and ordered by other people? For me, in a lot of cases, the answer is yes. This might not seem particularly fair, but...
Okay, wait a second. This is fine.
Because you have no soul.
This is fine to have as an opinion, but this is not a reasonable argument to start making just because the trigger man pulls the gun or the soldier, primes the shell or whatever.
Yeah, we're seeing this exact idea play out right now in the American police force. They're demanding that rank and file police officers be held accountable for every single mistake, and guess what's happening?
Yeah,
we're running short on police officers.
If you attack someone,
people are quitting.
If you attack someone and they have a gun, guess what? You're going to get shot. Doesn't matter who they are. They're police or otherwise. So.
Oh, but you could have a social worker with you that could de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and by all the social workers I've met, they don't even know how to have a conversation. Like,
I still love all these people who are like,
fuck that whole job.
Why wouldn't you just let someone take your stuff from your house? Why do you have to shoot them? It's like, they value my stuff more than their life.
I still want to see this connection to the anime because I'm just like, where are you going?
By the way, with the socialists after the wall fell, we did not treat them as harshly as we did the neo-Nazis, as we did the Nazis, the actual Nazis. They mostly got off scot-free. The politicians stayed politicians. They just built a new party. All the teachers they put in and to become a teacher in East Germany, you had to be ideologically pure. So we still had all those socialist teachers that were completely incompetent at teaching. Up until my day, and probably to this day still, because those who just got in the late 80s, they're probably still teaching, and so that's how they poison the next generation, in part by glossing over the atrocities of the red socialists, and in another way even by glorifying it. I've had it all in school, and that was in the 90s and 2000s. So why, if we go by his statement, his opinion, why did we let all the socialists who are really responsible for all the shit, why did we let them get off scot-free when we treated the Nazis very harshly?
Because it wasn't real socialism wisp, don't you know? That's their
shut up.
argument for everything.
Oh, shut up. It doesn't... but if it wasn't real socialism, then isn't that even more reason to get rid of these horrible monsters? Lock them away for a couple decades at least. Not let them work with your kids.
Well, here's non-Vitae Rex. Hello, Smudcast. Would you cover this guy's video on Falcon and the Winter Soldier at some point? What is this? This guy is an economy channel? Why is he talking about other media? What's going on? I don't understand.
Because in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you get this completely artificial, nonsensical moment with the bank where Falcon isn't getting a loan because he was dead for 5 years, which is completely retarded.
All right, well...
Yeah, considering Tony Stark as a person wouldn't let them not have money. Pepper Potts would not let them not have money.
If
somehow Falcon is broke.
If you guys...
Falcon, the Avenger.
If you guys vote on it, I'm sure we'll give it a shot, but I am not impressed.
From what I could see, it seems like this guy's... Yeah, it's like he's a libertarian-esque channel who then has like this media side.
He's going to look at war and say everything's
series?
bad. If you're a soldier, you're bad. It's like, okay, wait a second here.
Oh my god, we're at 7 minutes of 11 and he said nothing?
We're still waiting for an argument. He's talking about Nuremberg for the past 2 minutes, and we're like, dude, are you going to translate this back to the anime somehow? Because I've yet to see a problem with the anime having a genocide problem. So
yeah. Because the anime does address all of this. He mentioned it. The characters did have problems with doing that and lasting wounds of it.
All right.
Yeah, no character in the entire show says it was a good thing other than the villains.
Yeah, and he could have said, since he wanted people to watch the show beforehand anyway, the soldier that shot the kid was not an actual soldier. That was Envy disguising himself as a soldier. That was a homunculus.
Yeah, which when he showed that scene, when he didn't explain the fact that it was Envy...
Yeah, that was not an actual soldier.
Undercuts the point of... There's a reason why his eyes were glowing red and the kids were glowing blue. There's a point to that scene. And he completely cut out all context just to show the inciting incident. Which... While
the colors are the other way around.
If you want to keep... Oh, yes, you're right.
Ishvalan eyes are all red.
Yes, correct. You are correct. It's fine when if you want to do it as like a spoiler-free talk, but then don't show that scene. Like you can say, like this was the thing that happened was this, but don't show it.
Yeah, because it also takes like half the show until it is even explained why the Ishvalan thing happened. Yeah, for most of the show we're dealing with the repercussions of the Ishval conflict. But the explanation of how it started comes very late.
All right.
And even later than the reveal that it was Envy and not an actual soldier of the army.
Here is the Canist. Thanks for the $1.11. Off topic. Okay, I gave up on my comic book, but I started to novelize it. That's totally fine. Do any of you know a good YouTube channels that can help me with structuring and formatting? I could really use the help. Thanks. Well, I could definitely give you some basic pointers when you write. And if you're going from comic book and you're abandoning that and going to a short story format or a novella format, it's the same idea. And you just have to understand what you want to do within a scene. And then you say, is this going to be a chapter? Is this going to be following in the next scene? Is it going to lead into something else? And you do this all before you even write down any dialogue or writing or narration. So you plan it all out. You say, this is my beginning, this is my ending, here's a little bit of my middle, and then you start writing. So just plan out how long this will take, what's going to be happening in the plot, what's the ending going to be, and the rest is the journey of the character. That's all you have to do. So you don't need to watch a video on that. You don't have to watch some writer or some author explain stuff to structure your story. Just get the basics figured out, the main plot points, the ending, the denouement, and the climax for sure. That's it. Okay. 7 minutes in. Still waiting for an argument here.
We hired thugs and the people who hired them responsible for their crimes in the private sector. And putting on a government uniform doesn't eliminate free will or moral responsibility.
Okay, so if you guys know about
A hired thug is something very different from a soldier.
when you're talking about the law and you're talking about committing murder, there's mens rea pops up a lot in degrees of murder. So yes, if you kill someone, you will be tried for murder, but the argument will be, well, why did you kill this person? It's like, it's my job. I was hired to do this.
And a thug is...
Yes, now technically you can say that's for the military as well, but the military is...
The military aren't
beast
thugs.
altogether.
Yeah, the military aren't thugs. If you have a thug, that is a person who is already of morally questionable character. That's something completely different.
Yeah, and like we said before, military personnel don't get away with killing people just wantonly. If they do something wrong, they generally get tried. You just don't hear about it because it's kept within the military. If you pay attention to military news, then yes, you do find out about it. But generally, they don't broadcast this out to the world because look what's happening with the police forces.
Yeah,
everywhere.
They have internal...
When they start broadcasting this.
They have internal attorneys to deal with the problems that happen on their bases, with their organizations specifically. Sometimes they have to go cross-organization if they get involved in other military organizations. But yeah, this is all internal. And there's so much crime that happens because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of men and women in America, for example.
Yeah.
So
and it's a far stricter system too.
Oh yeah.
And regarding military, if you complain to your officer, oh god, I'm sorry, I can't get words together today. If you complain to your officer in rank above you that you are in disagreement about the order and you will not fulfill it, then all that will happen to you for now is being detained, and then it will be decided by a different instance of whether being insubordinate in that case was justified or not, which can then either lead to you getting back to whatever you were doing, or you being dishonorably discharged because you should have followed the order and you were wrong. In something like China, they're probably not going to be so nice and will just remove you from life. Maybe lower the social credit score of your family. And if you are in a war zone and there is no time for that, like imagine you just landed in Normandy on D-Day, and your officer gives you an order, and you are not complying. You instead want to run away or do something that's detrimental to your troops advancing on the Nazi fortress on the beach. That may have some drastic measures following because it's in the heat of the moment, and the mission is paramount. So that's where context comes into play. But generally, Western armies, you can decline an order, but you will have to suffer consequences that are humane.
All right, let's see where he's going.
Just in the words of St. Augustine, an unjust law is no law at all.
Okay, law and order is a little different, but okay, I see what they're trying to say.
He's not, but he's mainly just babbling.
Yeah, this is
because this is an ethical question.
Everyone agrees with.
Yeah, this is an ethical thing. In the best situation possible, law is an attempt to manifest. I know how to say it in German. Law is an attempt to map out justice in a logical code. It tries to manifest the justice as pure as possible, and that means fairness, justice and fairness. In reality, that can only be a goal, because that can never be truly, completely achieved. Because we have human elements in that. Even if we have the perfect code of law, we would still have trouble interpreting certain situations, because every situation, every case has so many elements that give connotations and denotations in all directions that it's not always super clear cut. And in reality, what we have is usually a body of law that is so big that it has loopholes that people abuse, that has some parts that are deliberately neglected by the lawmakers because they are themselves guilty of those very, very crimes. That's why certain crime, it's also one interpretation as to why certain punishments for certain crimes are never really increased, while others are ludicrously blown out of proportion. And that's just one example. So in reality, law is just something you are supposed to follow. That is completely irrelevant of whether that law makes sense, is just in any way. It just was made. It just exists.
All right.
So ethically, Augustine
is
correct.
Is no order at all. It is possible and good to violate orders that go against what we know to be morally right. If it wasn't, the world as we know it would have been destroyed decades ago.
Yeah, that is technically true. But and this is why I bring up the Sippenhaft again. Because would you have joined the SS? If that is the whole question, you would probably say no. Because, of course, Captain Hindsight will tell you that those were the bad guys. However, the actual situation in Germany at the time was many young people thought that was a good thing. Because they were taught that was a good thing. But even if you didn't think that was a good thing, by that time, well, when the SS wants to recruit you, the SS will recruit you. Especially if you're a tall, muscular, blonde, blue-haired guy. Very fit, perfect Aryan stereotype that they made up. They will say, we want you for the SS because you look like an SS officer should look. And if you are in disagreement with the ideology, you do not want to join, then they will not point the gun at you. Or for whatever order they will later give you, that you may have your ethical quarrels with. They will point the gun at your family, at your mom, your dad, your siblings, grandma. That's where they point the gun. So yes, you can refuse the orders, but you have to live with the consequences. And that is why this was such a vile time, because, and China does the same nowadays. That's why that was such a vile time. Because when the gun's pointed at you and only you, your life is on the line and you have to bear the consequences, yeah, there are more people likely to just take the bullet. But when the gun is pointed at someone else, it's basically taking hostages. Things look very different, and people are way more compliant because they don't want others to get hurt. Or rather, they don't want those to get hurt who are close to them. Because that's in the end the decision everyone makes. For the person that is most dear to you, which other human will you hurt? That is what you need to think about. And vile people will abuse exactly that setup.
All right.
They will create that setup.
He's going to probably give a bunch more examples of reality. I still want the anime to pop up to see what the hell he's talking about, because this is getting silly.
He's talking about nothing. He's just meandering around.
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Vasily Arkhipov had standing orders to fire his submarine's nuclear warhead if it was under attack. When the US Navy dropped some depth charges in their proximity, the Russian officers thought war with the US had already started, and both the captain and the political officer on board wanted to launch their missiles. But Vasily, whose position was flotilla commander, refused. He disobeyed orders, and he saved the world. And that brings us back to Fullmetal Alchemist. Despite the extenuating circumstances that led to the Ishvalan campaign, every single soldier and state alchemist in the Amestrian army had a choice.
That they didn't. And even if they made that choice to not do it, literally someone else would have gone in and done it. Father would have ensured that would have happened, because he had a plan, and he wanted that plan to be carried out.
Yeah,
whether or not the military listened to him.
Yeah, you'd be killed for insubordination. End of story.
Yes. I think he would have been jailed, more so than anything. And also... Oh, perfect example. What's his name? On screen right now. He went to jail for atrocities committed during the war, because he attacked women and children, and blew them up. When
he's
you
an
first
actual
see,
psychopath.
yes, he is. It's him.
The Ice Alchemist.
The Ice Alchemist, the Iron Blood Alchemist, and Bradley. Those are the three military members you see that don't regret the war, in any sense. And you see him in jail for crimes he committed during the war. So yes, there is consequences for these people. And the only reason he's let out is because Father sees him useful for getting what he wants.
Yeah, so
but jailing him for that is only to keep up face to
yes,
to the people of Amestria.
So this guy is what is the Crimson Alchemist, I think.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I think that was his name, which is a strange choice of words because he uses ice. I forgot why he was
that's the other
called
one.
Crimson.
No, this one uses the bombs.
Yeah.
He turns people into bombs.
Oh god, I'm sorry.
I can't think of his name. Kimberly, thank you.
Oh, he's turning people into bombs, right?
Yes, he can create anything. He can turn anything into a bomb. He's got the transmutation circles on his palms, which is why when you see him, he's in the arm lock stocks, so he can't touch his palms together.
He's the crazy artist. I am an artist. I create art on the battlefield, and I will make you explode, and all this bullshit. So he's one of those.
He's the one that's dressed like Michael Jackson while he's out and about.
Yeah, he's the it's the mindset
he's dressed just like him.
Well, he reminds me of Jin from League of Legends. He's just like this artist who wants to kill people. So he's already a psychopath. That's what I'm saying.
He's like an arsonist, a pyromaniac who sees the beauty in the flame.
The beauty of exploding body. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the fractal movements of the parts and the liquids, and that's the fascination.
This would be a good character to analyze because he is a bit of a philosopher as well. So if you're going to make an argument, start with this guy. Good idea. But he's also a psychopath, so it's like with different.
I think it was quite a nihilist too.
Yes, he was. Because when he died, he embraced it.
Yeah.
He's like, whatever. But like what Coolman said is in the super chats that Armstrong said no, and he was demoted, which is why he's at where he's at in terms of military rank.
Yeah. So there were some people who did disobey orders, and if the guy actually watched the show or knew who this guy was on screen, he would have talked about them.
Yeah, for me it's just a decade ago.
Join the army.
I have an
become a
excuse.
State alchemist. They had a choice about whether to follow the orders to torture and kill Ishvalan civilians.
Not necessarily. As I said, like with the SS, if the military really wants you, because Father wants you, because you are such an interesting alchemist, the military will make you want to join.
And I will say, with these gentlemen right here that's being turned into this Philosopher's Stone by Marco, they were soldiers that they hadn't killed yet. They weren't just civilians they grabbed off the street. They were not non-combatants. And also, Marco's doing this because if he doesn't, that's going to be him in that circle right there. And he knows it because they did that to people who said no before.
Yeah, this is where we can bring up the Sonderkommando, the I don't know how you translate that, the special forces, special group in Auschwitz.
Commando, I would assume special forces, yeah.
Yeah, which is a bit of a in German it means it's a more free term. The Sonderkommando in Auschwitz was prisoners. And they were the prisoners who led other prisoners. They got a few privileges, but they were the prisoners responsible for bringing other prisoners into the gas chambers, and after it's gassed out, to remove the bodies and operate the ovens and all of the nasty stuff. Dig out trenches where they at first threw them in, and all of that stuff, all the dirty work. Actual soldiers in Auschwitz did relatively little. They only guarded and threw in the Zyklon B from the roofs into the houses. That's all they did. Which was the whole point of why it was set up like this, because the whole Holocaust was set up in this way to minimize the psychological stress on the soldiers for killing, for committing mass murder, for committing genocide, for having to kill women and children. So the dirty work was all put to the prisoners themselves. And the Sonderkommando prisoners knew very well that in the end, once they were the last, they would have to go into the gas chambers as well. And if they didn't, they would just probably be shot or just sent into the gas chambers outright, and someone else would take their place. And that is what we see here. The military in Amestria is in no better position, if you will, because it's a horrible military dictatorship. If you are the moment the homunculi get involved, that is equatable to a situation like in Auschwitz, where you are the prisoner. That if you don't and you are sacrificing the other prisoners.
All right.
And if you don't, you are the one in the circle, as you say.
Let's go.
But our guys chose poorly. They still pulled the trigger, both literal and alchemical, on thousands of innocent people. Some of them still suffer for their choices during the course of the show. Some of them are desperately trying to atone. But atone...
You can also make the argument that prisoners in the Sonderkommando could have thought that if I do this, I stay alive longer in this place, and maybe will get freed, and I'm still alive when that happens. And that means that this is essentially a decision and a fight between your own life and that of others. And in that situation, most people will choose their own, because you don't know whether the guy whom you sacrifice, the unknown person you sacrifice yourself for, is even going to make it a day longer. This is very special circumstances in where your basic humanity is being tested and your survival instincts. So it's hard to really speak judgment in those scenarios. He's the morally high guy in the ivory tower, judging everyone. Like, I don't think he's ever been in a conflict, or even let's say a moral quandary in his life, because things aren't that easy. They aren't that black and white.
Okay.
Doesn't bring back the dead. Nothing can. Some things simply can't be fixed by alchemy or any other means, which, incidentally, is another major theme in Fullmetal Alchemist. And when you work for a man who turns out to be a homunculus and the literal embodiment of wrath, you're probably going to get some shady orders. People you care about are going to be hurt, and in the end, you're definitely going to be betrayed. The only solution is to know ahead of time which lines you're not willing to cross simply because you're told to. You have to take ownership of your actions in all situations.
You live in a very luxurious world, if you can say that, and think that applies to everyone on the planet all throughout history. And
Well,
you
at least
have
in the
absolutely no fucking clue of reality.
What is he talking about? Why is he rambling on about all this stuff you should be doing? It's like,
He's a moralizer who has absolutely no clue of what real life is like. He's learned nothing from this show. I think that's what we can say. Oh, it happens if you don't actually pay attention.
That's one of the reasons that Edward and Alphonse are such heroic characters. Unlike many of their colleagues, the Elric brothers spend a lot of the series examining their morality.
No,
Because
a lot
they're-
of the characters do
actually-
that.
Well, and also, well, Ed and Al specifically, because they're children. Al's
Yeah.
14. Ed is 15. People forget that that's how old they are. They are not adults.
Mhm.
Winry, I think, is only older than by a year. She's 16. They are not... Yes, Ed and Al have one line they don't want to cross, and that's actually killing someone. That's the only line they refuse to cross. Being fair. And, like, Mustang constantly, opines forcing children into what they're doing. Both him, he questions it a lot with Hawkeye, and Hawkeye consoles him for having to order them into what they're doing. And she tries to ease his conscience on that, because they're, once again, children. It's not that they're heroic because they're heroes. They're heroic. They're heroic because they're not super innocent, but they're still child-minded in terms of how old they are and their mental maturity.
Yeah, they have, and it is that naivety and ignorance about the true darkness of the world that allows them to keep this most basic rule of staying human. It's the moment you would abandon that is the moment you lose your innocence and your childhood is over forever. There's no going back.
all right, here's Alex Halo. Mustang says he's going to climb the ranks and change the country, which is why he stays.
Yeah, he acknowledged that the military's done terrible things. He's like, I'm going to fix this problem.
Yeah, he wants to
don't
be
like it
Führer. He wants to become Führer instead of the Führer. That's his whole goal. Because and that is an amicable plan. Because how else do you change a military dictatorship? You have to change the military dictator.
Yeah, and then when he has to give up, when he's forced to do a human transmutation, which, because they have to do the whole monkey's paw thing with human transmutation, he loses his eyesight, so he can no longer look over the country that he wanted to change. Like it's like Izumi wanted children, so the thing took her uterus, so she can no longer have children. Alphonse, he just wanted to feel their mother hug him again. He can't, because it took his body. I can't remember. I think it was with Ed, with his arm, the initial taking. I guess it was another case of he just wanted to feel his mother's hold his mother's hand.
There was something more to it, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's generally they whatever they lose something important to them.
Yeah, for the thing they want to achieve, they have to give up something at least symbolic. that
Yes.
symbolizes the thing. So you want something ultimate, like human transmutation. So you have to lose something ultimate to you.
Yeah, which is it's the whole monkey paw thing, which works really well thematically and for storytelling, in the sense of this show anyway.
Yeah, but the moral examination and reflection, even Armstrong does that. Izumi does that. Mustang does that. Hawkeye does that. I wouldn't even know who doesn't. And that's the great thing about well-told manga and anime stories.
I mean, technically,
Oftentimes the characters, all the growth is in manga. It's often more internal dialogue, but it is all about reflection and trying to understand what's going on and what's the best course of action and how you fucked up and how you cannot fuck up in the future.
Yeah, and that happens all the time in Full Metal, especially with Ed and Al.
Mm-hmm. Even some of the homunculi come around to doing that.
Yeah, it really Greed is really the only one that does that, but that's because he realizes, I like having friends. The power of friendship, and this gun I found is Greed's literal story. That's his whole storyline. It's awesome. I love him.
Yeah, and he realizes that friendship is not something you can just take by force.
Yeah.
What he does with everything else, and it's it changes him. That realization is what changes him.
Yep. It's Lust was kind of like that in the original series, where she kind of, because she remembered her past life, and she found that one village that she taught the alchemist, and she kind of fell in love with him. And then she insisted on not doing and killed him, but that helped turn her to be on Ed and Al's side for the rest of the series until she was killed. Yeah, there's always been one homunculus that breaks off in some way, shape, or form.
I think in Brotherhood, Pride seemed to come close to that at some point. But I can't put it into words anymore. But Pride ended up with an internal struggle.
Yeah, right at the end when Ed and him were fighting, literally internally, which is and then he reverted him back to the fetus form of the homunculi, which is a weird thing to say, but that's what he did.
Didn't he do that with Envy?
No, that was Envy's natural state, was the little green worm thing.
Okay.
Pride, he turned him back into the little baby, then left him there, and then they turned him over to Bradley's wife.
Okay, I remember,
to let him grow up as an adult, or grow as a normal child. Because somehow he was reverted back to being a normal, he doesn't remember anything about himself. But the military said they are watching him, and his wife obviously knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that I want to raise him as a normal child, and if he reverts, I understand what's going to happen to him. So
yeah.
Anyway. She felt that if Bradley was just raised like a normal human, he wouldn't be what he was. He would have been the man that she wanted him to be. So
yeah. Anyway, under the line, it's just this is another line of this video maker that is just wrong. He didn't pay attention to the show, and it has nothing to do with a genocide problem.
Yeah,
the title doesn't make sense so far. Still, he hasn't made the point. What is the genocide problem that Fullmetal Alchemist has? How is it? Because the implication is, when you formulate it like that, is that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, in some way, shape, or form, tackles the issue of genocide wrong. Makes a mistake, makes a grave mistake with that. So Please tell us what that mistake is.
And making conscious choices about what they are willing to do and why. Edward is also a little stubborn, and personally, I think that's not always such a bad trait, especially when it gives you the courage to stand by your principles in the face of powerful authority figures ordering you to abandon them. At the end of the day, you are the one who has to live with yourself and the things you've done. So, orders or no orders, make sure that you can. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this.
Oh my god.
Guys like this think that had they been around during the Nazi time in Germany, that they would have been in the resistance because that would have been the moral thing to do. Which is just crap.
What a complete non-video.
There was nothing in it.
Not addressing the topic, not giving examples, not discussing a specific character who did something that was bad. When we know there's examples of characters who didn't do things that were bad, or characters who did do things that were bad. Didn't mention any of that. Just showed a few clips on the screen and didn't talk about them. What's
just drivel? Like how can you look in the mirror every day when you make bullshit like this? This is fraud. I call it what it is. This is fraud.
Fullmetal never said that Genocide was bad because he can't say that because it very clearly does. Multiple times throughout the series.
Yeah.
And once again,
we
the only
see,
people
and
who
we
don't
see the
say
results
that
of
don't see it as genocide. They just see it as a necessary thing within the context of what they're trying to do. They don't see it as something bad. Even Kimberly, the only human who doesn't see any problem with it, doesn't see it as bad. He just sees it as, oh well.
all we have is one stream meme. Fantastic.
What?
Well, when you have nothing in the video, it's not much.
Yeah, there's nothing to say. Redhead Redemption. Fantastic. It's all from yesterday's video, though, so nothing to do with today's.
No.
Yeah. That's it, guys. Just one.
I mean,
this was sad.
Yeah.
I mean, would you rather have absolutely nothing and just talk about what they were wrong, or be like,
there's so much you can talk about with this show, and
oh yeah, no, I'm sure.
There's so much, and about this topic alone, and he said nothing. You're bad. You're bad. Out of frame, or whatever your channel name is, you are bad. You should feel bad, okay? I know these are buzz sentences, but fucking hell, what a waste of time. I pity the people who give you money.
I left my comment there. I'm ready to say goodbye to this guy. He was a waste of time, unfortunately. So, yeah, we need some actual fans of anime, maybe, to talk about the characters. And we will see whether or not the conversation they're discussing or the points or the references are accurate. And if they're accurate, we then have to understand their interpretation. And hopefully the interpretation is the same as the observation. It's like what you see is what you get. But that's very rarely the case with a lot of these guys we cover. And this was not even that. This was just, hey, here's an anime where genocide happens, and that's bad. Here's examples in police and real life.
It's like this guy wanted to do another video, but his audience was demanding another video of him, so he just slammed the two together and got this.
Thousands of people voted
nothing of a video
on do Fullmetal Alchemist. Yes, we did it, and you didn't talk about it. What was the point? Well, I don't know, 220 or was it 250,000 subs? Like, I mean, good for him.
Wow. You can get 150,000 subs with this crap.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit frightening that they could pull this shit off and get popular. But you know, that's YouTube for you. There's all kinds of people.
I rather understand when people fall for MatPat. Because that's at least ludicrous comedy bullshit.
Yeah, it's supposed to be stupid. You can't take it seriously.
Because I mean, at least MatPat puts effort into writing.
Yeah, and he tends to stay on the topic of his video title.
Yeah.
It's
Because
often
it's just-
complete bullshit, but but it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
Is Mario a communist? God, fucking shoot yourself.
All right, guys. Well, that's all. Unless you have other suggestions from this guy, I probably don't want to cover him again, but we have lots more videos to cover. Keep the suggestions coming. Keep the voting going. And I'm just going to have to try to find people who want to cover videos because it's been tough the past few days because everyone's like too busy, not interested, or the videos themselves have been just nothing. And this was,
I'm mainly sick. I'm sorry. I would be around, but I'm just...
I know, but some of these videos, like we had voting before, and like yesterday and the day before, they were not the first pick. So you just could not cover the video. There's nothing to talk about. It's just rambling. Like the round table is one example. Just it's a big video about nothing. All of his videos about nothing, and I don't know why he makes them and why anyone cares to watch. But man, hopefully next time we'll get something juicier, something with a opinion that is accurate or wildly unpopular, and we could take it apart. That'd be great. Other than that, we're pretty bored.
We could do some TEDx bullshit.
Oh boy, that'll be some woman whining about Native Americans or something.
How nail polish prices are oppressing her because of her skin color or something.
Well, whatever you guys suggest, keep them coming in the suggestions channel of the Discord. Always appreciate it. Thank you for all your time, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Catch it easy.